A very good day to everybody. I'm very glad that I've been invited by the organizers of REPECT to join this symposium on the history of economic thought and to present and to give a presentation despite the distance from the organizers. My name is Carmelo Ferlito from the Center for Market Education in Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia. Just allow me a brief premise. Mine will not properly be a presentation on the history of economic thought, despite I work on the discipline for many years in the past. Being the mission of the Center for Market Education, mainly educational and methodological, I will focus on a brief introductory methodological issue. And I will do so with the help of a presentation. So allow me to share the screen. Okay. So the title of my presentation is the crisis of economics a crisis of vision? And as we will see, by vision, I have in mind a concept described by the Austrian economist Joseph Schumpeter, better. First of all, as the organizer asked me, allow me to give few words about the Center for Market Education, an initiative that I found and created with the help of some friends in Malaysia last year. As it was created actually as a unit within the Institute for Democracy and Economic Affairs, which is one of the most important independent think tank, not only in Malaysia, but in the region. Being ideas mostly a think tank oriented to policy advocacy, we felt the need to create something that was more focused on education. So we have a double mission. One is promoting pluralism and multidisciplinarity in economics, thanks to and via purely academic initiatives. But we also want to promote a better understanding of the driving forces of the market process. And we do this thanks to educational initiatives, short classes in economics devoted to non-economists like journalists, policymakers, but also undergraduate and postgraduate students, whoever is interested. And we do also webinars on different topics in economics. You can find on our website, on our YouTube channel or our Facebook page, all the information that you need and the recording of our previous events. So if you are interested, here are all our contacts in this slide, and feel free to navigate through our social media. And I would like also to drive the attention of the people present today at this symposium to an online academic conferences that the Center for Market Education is organizing in cooperation with the World Economics Association. For us, it's a very important cooperation, a very prestigious one, and we hope that this conference will be a big success and will help to understand better the dynamics of the policies implemented all over the world during these COVID-19 emergencies. In this slide, you can see the links where you can find all the necessary information. Now, let's go into the topic that I would like to discuss with the public and with, for sure, the qualified attendance to this seminar, people that are much more qualified than me. Although I had the pleasure to teach history of economic thought for 7 years here in Malaysia, I now abandoned, the purely academic career to devote myself to developing this center. So a topic that really fascinates me is the topic of the crisis of economics. Obviously, is not a new topic. Plenty of books have been written and published on the topic in the past decades. And it's quite striking how actually, despite all this debate on pluralism and on the crisis of mainstream is still there, holding strong positions in academia and making it difficult for non-orthodox economists to jump the ladder of the academic career. But let's focus on the topic. Let's say that the crisis of economics can at least partially be seen as the inability of modern economists to develop interpretative frameworks that help to explain reality. And I wonder how much is this phenomenon an emerging phenomenon, so somehow unintended, and how much there is indeed, because of the methodological foundations of modern economics, how much is a voluntary attempt to escape reality, to find a solid refuge into the ivory towers of mathematics and econometrics. So all over the past decades, there has been the call for a reform that is, if I may summarize, centered on pluralism, multidisciplinarity, and realism. This is also part of the mission of the center. Now, it seems that the crisis of economics is also often interpreted in terms of a dualism between mainstream and heterodox economics. However, as it is very well described in this book by Jeffrey Hodgson, Is There a Future for Heterodox Economics, recently published, I think is from 2019, it's very difficult to find at least a common definition for heterodox economics. So the word is subject to many interpretations and include different kind of streams in economics, but to find an understanding on the meaning of heterodox economics, it looks more complicated than what it appears. But I argue that the crisis of economics is probably deeper than the simple contraposition between mainstream and heterodoxy. In fact, as I just mentioned, first of all, what is heterodox economics? And often we think about heterodox economics as a left-leaning economics, while instead we have also streams like the Austrians, which are very far away from being leftists. But also, as Hodgson indeed argues, many heterodox economists use the same methodology, the same theoretical framework as mainstream economists. Is the case during the socialist economic calculation debate of Abba Lerner and Oscar Lange. So we cannot simply define heterodoxy based on the political leaning, because indeed there are a lot of things in common between mainstream economics and certain socialists, let's say, or left-leaning economists, in terms of the analytical framework that is used to explain or trying to explain economic reality. So I will use some Schumpeterian hints to dig a little bit deeper into the nature of the crisis of economics. We know that some of the Schumpeterian ideas became very popular even in the Vulgata, in the economics as a narrative. We think about the link between entrepreneurship and innovation, the concept of creative destruction, the crisis of capitalism and the passage from entrepreneurial capitalism to trustified capitalism. But unfortunately, the discourse, the conversation that Schumpeter developed on methodology, in particular in the history of economic analysis, is less known even among professional economists. And this is really a pity, because a lot of useful things can be found there. And Schumpeter says something very, very interesting at the beginning when he touched the topic of methodology. I quote him: "So when we start our research work, we should first have to visualize a distinct set of coherent phenomena as a worthwhile object of our analytic efforts. In other words, analytic effort is of necessity preceded by a pre-analytic cognitive act that supplies the raw material for the analytic effort. Schumpeter called that pre-analytic cognitive act the vision. So the point of this presentation is to interpret the crisis of economics as a crisis of vision intended as the pre-analytical cognitive act that precede the analytical effort of the economist. We have to understand and to admit that the economist is not indeed an observer alien to reality. He or she lives in specific conditions of place and time, and it is thanks to the interaction with and the observation of the reality typical of such conditions that the vision is indeed shaped. The analytical effort is then the attempt, I believe, to convert the vision into concepts, into a scheme, and this is also how Schumpeter described it. Unfortunately, I believe that a great part of contemporary scholarly work in economics is affected by attempt, which can be more or less conscious, to escape the vision, to escape that impact with reality that help us to set up the set of questions that we want to use for our analytical effort. And probably this happened because of the idea that economics should be pure. And this has perhaps contributed to move the researcher away from reality, and therefore away from the need for a vision. This doesn't mean that, in fact, contemporary economists don't use data. In fact, the contemporary economics is filled with empiricism and data collection. But the point here is that they are not enough to represent and to interpret reality. They are just raw materials somehow. We need lens. We need what Lachman called the hermeneutical effort. So data collection cannot exhaust theory. So my question is that probably here we are experiencing a new Methodenstreit in which we have economists that are convinced that the collection and interpolation of data is enough to build a theory, and other economists that think that that is only a step into the process of theory building. So somehow I believe that the content of the analytical work has been disjointed from its predecessor, which is the vision, and by its consequences. The theory is somehow the analytical effort is there alone. So the modern economist looks like a bricklayer who is putting brick over brick, but without the idea of building a house and without having in mind which kind of house he or she wants to build. The result can only be, I believe, at best, the approximation of a house. The analytical effort is indeed bricklaying. So theory is shaped by the vision, but not necessarily an exact mirror of it, as the construction work may reveal something that was previously unknown and that may force to revise the vision. Okay. So the link of these passages is fundamental. When, before starting bricklaying, we should experience something that put us in the position to build a house. Could be the fact that we graduate, the fact that we see a nice piece of land that can become the right place where to build a house, and etc. So that is the moment in which our vision is shaped. Consistently with this vision, we start bricklaying, so putting brick over brick. But then during this construction work, something can happen that make us revise our initial vision, and therefore our final project change. And that final outcome is indeed the theory, which is a dynamic and never-ending process of interaction between the vision and the analytical work. What we experience now is instead economics as a series of erratic data collections, while statistical correlation is often confused with actual causation. I believe that the time is come, as argued by Peter Böttke in a beautiful book that I recommend, The 4 Pillars of Economics Understanding. So the time is come for the economist to sit back, look out of the window, not at the blackboard first, look out of the window and let his or her observation in astonishment, because the reality is always a source of astonishment, to shape that vision which is so much needed if the blackboard work has to have a meaning at all. This does not mean that we don't need abstraction, okay, that we need to just represent reality with as we see it. And Peter Böttke, indeed, in his book that I just mentioned, makes a very nice example, the example of the GPS. The GPS is surely an instrument that abstract reality. We don't have all the details of reality in the map on the GPS, but at the same time, we don't have simply the 4 cardinal points. It's not just a compass. We have more than that. So the GPS is an instrument that helps us to understand reality with the right level of abstraction that keep us linked to reality, not bringing us away from it. But first of all, obviously, we need to have an idea of where we want to go. Then the pre-analytic effort and the analysis will together build the theory. But without having that vision at the beginning, we don't go anywhere. Theory is, at the end, an hermeneutical attempt. Is important that we perceive the analysis to be purely hermeneutical. That means an interpretative effort. And we need interpretation if we deal with reality. If we don't deal with reality, we have nothing to interpret. In order to deal with reality, we need first to shape a vision in our impact, scientific, human, cultural, social impact with reality. Here are a few references. That's all for me for today. I hope that I gave some interesting hints for the discussion and to contribute to the discussion of these days. Again, thank you very much to the organizers, and I hope that sooner or later we will have chance to do something together without the help of the virtual world, but very much in person. Thank you very much and keep in touch. Have good days ahead.